because we know that the Bible wasn't written to us, but instead was written for us, how do we know what we can apply to ourselves and what were the specific promises to the people of that day?
Yeah, that's an important question. So the Bible's written for us, not to us in the sense it's just not just, information or not written at us. We talk, where I am at least, about people who preach at you versus people who preach to you or for you in a spirit of love. And of course, that's what's there in the Bible. It's written for us, for our salvation, for our good, for our capacity to find the way of life and to flourish in all God's ways. So that's the first. And then the second part of your question was something about promises, right? Did I
That's
hear you
right. Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the things we have to do when we read the Bible is understand what kind of a promise we have when we see one. So when we have, for example, Genesis chapter 12, and God says to Abraham that I'm going to make you great, and you'll be a great nation, and you'll have descendants as numerous as the seashore. And there's also the promise he'll have a son. Well, that promise was given to Abraham. I actually have 3 daughters, no sons. I'm delighted with my daughters. When God said to Abraham, you will have a son, he wasn't telling every person who reads the Bible, you will have a son, right?
Yeah.
So we have to ask, was this question given to an individual or to the people of God? Is this promise given to all Christians at all times, or is it given for a particular time? So again, we can think about, God promising David that he and his sons would sit in the throne. Well, there's no throne in Israel anymore. And so that promise was true for a time until the gross rebellion, and then it ended. Oh, but of course it was fulfilled in Christ. So a lot of promises are actually fulfilled in Christ, not in some linear way for us. So
Yeah.
a lot of the promises in the Bible that tell us that God's going to care for us and prosper us. There are people who die. There are people who die as martyrs, and the care is not temporal care. We can't say, oh, Lord, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you, and I take that to mean I'll get out of all the troubles I have. No, what it means is I'll never leave you or forsake you in the troubles you have, which could lead to death. And then the other thing, you have to read the book of Proverbs very carefully, of course. So there are parts of Proverbs that read like or naively seem like a promise, but they're actually a description of the way the world usually is. And so one of the most studied or contemplated or famous of those is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he will not depart from it. And then Christians think, well, I have 5 children and, one of them departed, or maybe I have 3 children and 2 of them departed from the faith. So what happened? How did that happen? Now, of course, they might become Christians or believers yet. Even after you die, they might become believers. That's one possibility. But another possibility is that it's wrong to take it as an absolute promise. This is the way the world usually works under God's blessing. Train up your child in the way they go, and they'll not depart from it. Some people go a different direction. They say this is not a promise, it's an ironic statement. They say, you train up a child in the way he wants to go, the way he would go, and I promise you, when he's older, he won't depart from it. And that's like a warning about indulging a child. And there may be truth to that, but I don't think it's what it means in the book of Proverbs. The way is God's way. But people go to that ironic interpretation because there are a fair number of children who don't follow in their parents' footsteps in faith. And so we understand that so many Proverbs are the normal way of wisdom, but not an absolute promise.
Yeah.